Well, well, well. Game ones are in the books. The Clippers look like the frauds they were last year. Anthony Davis and LeBron got punked by Devin Booker and Ayton. There is a new public enemy number one in New York City. I am Justin, joined by my colleague Justin on the Taco Ball Tuesday podcast, bringing you action from game ones around the league. Justin, these game ones didn't disappoint. What say you?
Yeah, it was a blast, man. We had some surprises. We had some not so much surprises. We got some overreactions, some underreactions. It was spicy, and some of the matchups we thought would be much milder ended up being much hotter. So
there might be some upgrading in the future of our
there
sauce
might
matchups.
Be. We just might get to the Diablo, and the matchup that we thought would be probably the most bland ended up being pretty spicy, pretty good. So let's hit what's on the menu, and let's dive right in here. So we've got tons of game ones to recap. We've got our candidates that we want to introduce to you as the Baja Blast Breakthrough Players.
Triple BP, baby.
Triple BP players to track as these playoffs progress. And we've got to hit some overreactions, underactions. We're only one game in with the Heat Bucks game on, game two in. So time to overreact, time to underreact. But before we do need to highlight an honorable mention here in the process. We need to highlight the fantastic performance of the Memphis Grizzlies, bouncing the Golden State Warriors out of the playoffs, sending Draymond Green, sending Steph Curry, sending the rest of the scrubs on that team home, sent them home fishing. And this GIF captured the moment for me better than anything else. We have this hard foul that Draymond Green has on Ja Morant. Ja Morant goes from like, okay, I'm okay, to suddenly like, why the hell am I being held by this man and being patted on the belly by Draymond Green? Now Justin, is this just normal Draymond things? What's going on here?
Well, I always heard rubbing a bear on the belly would help put it to sleep if you ever got into a fight with a bear. But maybe that's for a panda bear, not necessarily a grizzly. So I think Draymond was a hair confused on this one.
Not this Grizzly squad. That is for sure. And Ja Morant, continued that energy, just took over down the stretch, took over in overtime. Fantastic finish.
It was great to see. Loved every minute of it. Couldn't have happened to a better group of guys.
All right, Justin. So I'm going to pass it over to you. Let's spend a little bit of time on each one of these game ones, starting off on Saturday between the Heat and the Bucks.
Heat Bucks, we had it labeled as our top fire sauce matchup, and it delivered in every aspect. Overtime thriller, we had Jimmy Buckets pushing it to overtime with a buzzer beater at the end of regulation. We had Chris Middleton hitting the game winner with 0.5 of a second left on the clock, and then just suffocating defense, controlling the inbounds and stopping Butler from having a chance at possibly winning it in overtime. So it delivered in every single aspect. Definitely the series to keep your eye on. We're going to shift it right over to Mavs Clips. What was your takeaway?
That's right. So Luka Doncic, unstoppable is what I have for this one.
Unless they intentionally injure him again. Carry on.
Okay, that is a valid point. We've got Porzingis, healthy Porzingis in the squad as well. But yeah, Luka Doncic pretty much had his way with the Clippers squad, no matter who they put on him. I am curious to see if they put Kawhi Leonard as his primary assignment, to see if that slows him down at all. But
best wing defenders in the league couldn't keep him down.
Yeah, both. I mean, they've got the defensive weapons, but they still could not find a way to prevent this man from scoring at will. So, to me, the Clippers got to show some better effort, or this series could be over than I think what both of us had predicted. Nothing too surprising there. So let's carry on. Hit me with what you've got. What's your take for the Celtics Nets matchup?
It's over. The series was over before it started. The Celtics have no firepower. They can't. I mean, the Nets just were in cruise control for like 3 quarters, not really trying hard, and the Celtics just had nothing. They just don't have the playmakers to keep up with it, and they don't have the defense to really be able to push 100% defense for 4 quarters. I just don't think they can keep up with it. I had it go in 5 games. It wouldn't shock me if it only went 4. So nothing really exciting happened in that game. But later that night, the night game, Blazers, Nuggets, big time action. What's your thoughts?
That's right. So Dollar Dame coming in, ready to play and ready to show this Nuggets squad that he says, I see your MVP front runner, and I don't care. I'm going to take over this game and show you to never count me out, never count my squad out. Give us the respect that we deserve. This to me was really a statement win. I think it revealed that the Nuggets just have to find other scoring options. There's only so much that they can put on Jokic. Nikola. I mean, dude was fantastic. He still played a great game. It just came up short, and
He needs help.
He needs a lot more help than what they got in that game. I mean, they thoroughly got outplayed and out hustled by a more complete Trailblazer squad. So no, I mean, it wasn't very surprising to me. They just were the team that was ready to go. So in terms of surprise, what say you about this Wizards-Sixers matchup that on paper to me looks like it was closer than what many would have anticipated?
I guess I didn't think it was really that close of a game. The Wizards were able to hang around a little bit. I think they're going to be able to do that just because of Beal and Westbrook and their ability to score. But I don't really see the games being as close as the scores dictate. 76ers were a little rusty out of the gate, but when it was time to take over, they took over. They have, as long as Embiid is not in foul trouble, there's not a human on earth that can stop him. So I don't think there was much of a surprise there, and I don't think it was as close as perhaps the score might indicate. Pains me to do this. I'm glad I'm not talking about this game. I gave you my thoughts on it already, but I'm going to kick over Lakers, Suns, instant reaction.
Oh, don't worry, Saldonia, because after some of my criticism for your LeBron-led squad, you'll probably want to have a word or two in here. So this to me, this is one of those box scores that doesn't represent just how much of the Lakers' butts got absolutely kicked in this game. I watched most of the second half here, and the Lakers looked dazed. They looked confused. They looked like they were the ones that were starting a rookie squad going into the playoffs, man. It was not a good look for the Lakers. We had a brawl at one point. Montrezl Harrell jumping in, trying to defend his buddy, who was Cameron Payne chucking a ball at Alex Caruso. Things got out of hand, and I think that captured the way a lot of the Lakers they were not in this game. They weren't there mentally. They didn't bring the intensity. Devin Booker looked fantastic. Deandre Ayton out there. Chris Paul played through what looked like a pretty serious shoulder injury, unlike the absolute flop that LeBron had.
Oh
Whenever
my gosh.
Chris
the level
Paul
of disrespect tonight
Chris Paul goes to block him out. Yeah, there was a little bit of elbow grease in there. And then LeBron, suddenly feeling outmatched and outsized by Chris Paul, throws himself across the floor, landing awkwardly on his shoulder. So
yeah, so injured that he had to undercut a 265-pound man who's in the middle of the air and then put an arm bar on him with his sore, aching shoulder and neck problems. Give me a break.
And that's where I'm going to end with this matchup. I mean, the Suns came out saying, "We're going to punch you in the face. We're going to put our feet on your throat, and we're going to go for the kill." They are a force to be reckoned with.
Literally by ripping your arm out of your socket. going for the kill.
They were the more physical team.
Let's see. Definitely the more physical team. AD definitely looked like he just got out of like a 2-week-long sweat lodge. So dazed was quite the word for him. But he just got abused on both ends of the court by Ayton. There's nothing else to be said.
See, Justin, I knew you'd have some fine comments for that match.
I need a rebuttal.
Let's give some respect here to our next matchup with the Hawks Knicks.
I said it in the opening monologue. Public enemy number one, baby. Trae Young, New York City. This was a mild sauce matchup only because not much of the star power, but the crowd at MSG, the fans, as much as they got into it, the clamp down defense, I think, is going to keep these games close, each and every one of them. So this is a series to watch to maybe be getting the upgrade from the mild sauce matchup. Might be going a little bit hotter because this could be getting entertaining. And certainly game one was far more entertaining than I thought it might be. So I might just find myself tuning in to game two.
Yeah, especially if there's more absolutely savage moments from Trae Young. I mean, that at the end there, when he silenced the crowd there, putting the finger up between his eyebrows and just after the game saying
the best thing
noise. But
Reggie Miller choke, baby.
That's right. He did this right in front of Spike Lee, in front of the whole
Spike
crowd.
Lee's face.
Oh my gosh, that was absolutely savage it was incredible just to witness that moment.
I did feel as though their crowd was maybe not as loud as it could have been, seeing as half their residents have moved down south anyways. So final game from our game ones, Jazz Grizzlies. A late night game.
Yeah.
Where did we end on that?
I think most people were a little bit surprised to, at least on the East Coast, to wake up and see the result of this score like I was. I definitely thought this would be a lopsided win. The Jazz with fresh legs would hand it pretty handily to the Grizzlies, but we had a squad that they went out to an early lead and they sustained a lot of that lead down the stretch. Dillon Brooks stepped up and was playing incredible.
Sensational
on both sides of the floor. I mean, this guy is making himself a household name with what he's done against the Spurs, against the Warriors, and now what he's doing with the Jazz. So to me, I'm looking at the series going, can they sustain that momentum? Can Ja continue to score, as easily as he's done, and are we going to have some of these complete performances by other role players?
Yeah, definitely a little bit surprising, I think. It's got the Jazz already going straight to activation on Donovan Mitchell time. A little bit of a error from our last podcast said that Mitchell was most likely going to be out for the playoffs. I think that was originally slated for maybe just the first round, but I guess he's progressing or they feel they are in a dire situation and need to bring him back to try and win this first round matchup. So we'll see in game two what that might bring.
And look at this. What's this game that we've got going on right now? Tell me a little bit more. What is going on here?
Quick live looking. Miami Heat getting straight worked by the Milwaukee Bucks, who hit a record for them, 10 threes in the first quarter, jumped out to a massive lead, and Miami just kind of looking disinterested. 27 points at half. I don't know if they really have the heart to want to get back in this one. You never want to count out Jimmy Buckets, but because he is one of the ultimate competitors. But at 27 points, you cut your losses, you head back to Miami, and you prep there, or you keep pushing the starters through and see if you can make a couple little runs here in the second half. So I'll be interested to see what, if anything, happens here. Maybe things get a little more physical, a little more chippy. So definitely something to keep the eye on as we carry on.
Just this 46-point first quarter for the Bucks. That's just absolute
And
destruction.
embarrassing for a team that hangs their hat on being tough defensively. So
Yeah, I think we're seeing a little bit of the now that we're not in the bubble, we're seeing some of these teams be able to start off a little bit faster and just be able to hit the ground running, start these games off real hot. I mean, that's
yeah,
46
I,
points in a single quarter. That's crazy.
yeah, I think the Bucks are definitely improved off of last year with some of the moves that they made in the offseason. And like I said, it's early, but I think Giannis is ready to pull this one out and start taking some steps forward here to vanquish some of these playoff ghosts. So we'll see.
Yeah. So that's our game one action. We got game twos kicking off with this game, another game on tonight, and then I think we've got 3 games on tap for tomorrow. Let's talk about our triple BPs.
Triple BP, baby.
For the Baja Blast Breakthrough Player. We were in pretty much full agreement with who we see as number 1 on this list. We've got some interesting players, number 2 and number 3. But let's
first,
so top of this platform in the running.
So for our triple BP, we're looking at players that maybe for some of you casual fans you've not heard of before, becoming a household name throughout the playoffs. So we'll keep tabs on which players are stepping up and taking those out. And the first man, somebody that Ogden and I have criticized throughout the season, who I didn't even know about going into the season until Ogden mentioned to me that this dude was the discount Danny Green. And so that's kind of stuck with him throughout this process. Got a lot of the same qualities, but he's on the cheap compared to the price of a Danny Green. And that is our new main man, your boy, Dillon Brooks.
Dillon Brooks. No longer discount Danny Green.
Oh, man, the upgraded version. So, 3 straight games of really putting work on the other team. Been a massive defensive presence in each of those games. And last night, leading scorer, really exploded. Really a great compliment to what John Morant is as their leader, to have a number 2 that's going to go out there and lock people down, but can also get you some buckets. So for those reasons, discount Danny Green, Dillon Brooks. Perhaps you might be this year's triple BP when it's all said and done.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how far their playoff run continues. So now I'm going to introduce our second player that we have as candidate for triple BP here. We have to recognize the performance of one of our our newest to the playoffs Suns roster, Deandre Ayton, who absolutely took Anthony Davis to town yesterday. I mean,
ate his lunch.
He ate anything that resembled lunch for AD. He was rebounding all over the place. So many offensive boards, defensive boards, blocked shots, altered shots. He was scoring down low in the paint, creating so many problems on the inside for the Lakers. You could tell when he was on the floor, the Lakers did not feel able to really penetrate, and they were settling for a lot of outside shots that were not falling. So Deandre Ayton, to me, is where we're going to be keeping an eye on for triple BP. Now,
we've got
who's our third person?
We've got one more guy creeping into the conversation. Our sort of our third star here for possible triple BP candidacy, and that is a man from the New York City. We got Mr. Alec Burks. Now, Mr. Alec Burks has traveled around, been somewhat of a journeyman, and as members of any of the fan bases that he's played for, you're thinking to yourself, what? Who? Why? But if you take a look at the box score, you take a look at game film, he was everywhere and doing it all. So for the presence that he brought to the New York Knicks, perhaps a Mr. Alec Burks could be our triple BP.
Yeah, making his name known across the land and giving Knicks fans a reason to get loud. So we're only one game into a lot of these series, just kicking off game twos tonight, and there's all sorts of overreaction. People are saying, "Oh, the series is over. This team is doomed." So let's try to bring a little bit more reality and help our listeners out in terms of knowing what they actually really need to be dialed into and watch as these series go on. So I want to hear from you, Justin, in terms of which teams are you most concerned about after what you saw in Game 1?
I think my biggest concern goes to the Denver Nuggets. I think the absence of Jamal Murray puts a lot on Nicola's shoulders, who's up for the task, but he needs a two-man. He needs can't be a 1-2 punch without a number two. Trailblazers have that. Dame, CJ, both healthy, both ready to go. Yeah, Nurkic, they've got a number three as well, who can't carry the weight of Nikola, but there could definitely be worse options at that spot. So I think some of my biggest concern would be how the Nuggets looked and how I just don't know if they're going to even be able to stretch this series. So there's overreaction from that Game 1. I think the Jazz, maybe the Jazz are overreacting by calling in Donovan Mitchell for Game 2, ready to go. I hope that he is not rushing back because they lost Game 1, but that he's actually healthy. Because one of my favorite parts of last year's playoffs was Donovan Mitchell versus Jamal Murray for 7 games, which was ridiculous. I would love to relive that. So I want them both to be healthy. I'm hoping Donovan Mitchell isn't coming back too early. Last but not least, overreaction. Game 1, city of Los Angeles. Some of you feel like you're in trouble, and maybe some of you are. I think the Clippers are certainly in for a lot more trouble than maybe I had originally anticipated. I forgot to mention the backstory, the history, is that they played each other in the first round last year. And if not for some intentional injuries to Don Luca, I think the Clippers might have been bounced in round 1 last year. They look like they are the same team from last year. They can't close out games, they can't get stops, and they can't get buckets late. So I would say it might be time to hit the panic button there. For some casual fans, if you don't typically watch the NBA and you watched the Lakers versus the Suns on ABC on Sunday afternoon, you would say, this team stinks. They look lazy. They look lethargic, apathetic. They don't care. They don't hustle. They're not gritty. They look lost out on the court. I would say all those were true for Game 1. But as a guy who's followed LeBron for the majority of his life, I'm aware of the Game 1 woes. They lost every Game 1 in last year's playoffs and still won the championship. So I am not too concerned, but I could see why there might be some overreaction there.
Yeah, and at least with that Lakers series, you still saw some fight. You still saw, I mean, again, Montrezl Harrell come to the defense of his teammate Alex Caruso, and that brawl rolled out. I do think there's more cause for concern for the Clippers. Just like you brought up a great point, Justin, that we're seeing a lot of the same woes. Now the question will be if those same problems persist through the rest of the series, or if the Clippers make the adjustment. But to me, this Clippers squad is still, I don't know, down the stretch. I'm still like trying to figure out who is the leader of the squad, who is the person that takes control, and I'm just not sold on Kawhi Leonard being that person. Not sold on Paul George. I think they're still trying to find their identity. And
way off
to be doing that in a 7-game series potentially against the Mavs, that's not where you want to be. So I'm definitely going to be paying a little bit more closer to this matchup.
And perhaps had they not intentionally lost their last 2 games of the season to avoid the Lakers in round 2, maybe they'd be playing a team in Portland, of which they've had quite a bit of success lately. So matchups, and it could come back to haunt them.
For sure. Well, that is all we've got. A shorter podcast tonight, so that we can let you get back into all this action, get back into this Bucks Heat game. And if you are like me, yo quiero taco ball, there are ways that you can follow all of the action, all of the antics. We're on social media. Send us questions. We'll be posting more memes as the playoff goes on. We'll have more action coming at you next Tuesday. What you got to say, Justin? Anything else?
Check us out at Taco Ball Tuesday on Twitter and on Instagram. Subscribe, hit like, give us your comments. We'll mention you in the podcast. We thank you for listening. We will be back with you next week for our next episode of Taco Ball Tuesday. Perhaps some series will have wrapped up by then, and we'll have a better look at this playoff picture. Until then, if these games get too hot, a little too spicy for you, head on over to Taco Bell, get a brand new Baja Blast Colada Freeze to cool yourself down.
Sounds delicious.
Until next week, yo quiero taco ball.
Yo quiero taco ball.